So some of this, for us is equally interesting. Like, yes, we love helping customers go to the UK or Netherlands or Ireland, but some of it for us is also an opportunity to learn. But, equally, I say regularly, if it were easy, everybody would do it.
Welcome to Radical Transformation, the show where we get up close and personal with the leaders disrupting and transforming business today. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Randy Worzala. Randy spent the last 20 years or so rising to the top of the finance BPO industry, working for some of the biggest names in finance outsourcing, before co-founding HSP Group, the hyper-growth international expansion solution specialist that last year alone helped businesses set up operations in 74 countries globally. Randy, welcome to the show, my friend. Thanks for joining us all the way from Indianapolis today. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, Mike. Appreciate the opportunity. Thrilled to be here today and spend a little time with you.
No, fantastic. Thanks for coming on the show. So let's jump straight in. Something a little bit different. I'd like our listeners to find out a bit about your past here. What was your first ever job, Randy? Tell us about it.
What was my first ever job? When I was 14 years old, bagged groceries at a grocery store. I absolutely loved that job. It was a ton of fun. I was always on my feet. Got to talk to customers regularly. It certainly wasn't a life ambition, but kept time moving and put money in my pocket along the way. And at 14, riding my bike to work, I felt incredibly independent and had a ton of fun.
Brilliant. Any life lessons you still draw upon today from bagging those groceries?
Stay busy. We have this saying here in the U.S., Rolling Stone gathers no moss. Saturday afternoons at the grocery store were my favorite time because it was the busiest of the week. It made time go by exponentially faster. I've had the privilege of lots of random jobs over the course of, kind of the last 30, 35 years in lots of different industries, all of which, I've tried to kind of take something, from that experience and kind of parlay it into what's next.
Great. And it sounded like that kept you off the streets as well, didn't it? At that young age.
My parents would appreciate that for sure.
Cool. Mine also. Listen, what's one thing that people are generally surprised to find out about you? Share it with us.
One thing a lot of folks don't know, and maybe this is part of or related to how I got to where I am. I grew up in a expat family. So once upon a time, my parents moved from the U.S. to Germany, spent 5 years there. And that was for us as a family, as I look back on it, an amazing experience, just kind of personally, professionally, culturally. It was quite scary at the onset, just learning a new culture, new language. But I feel like that, obviously having no idea at the time, that experience is part of why I do what I do today and helping clients with their international expansion journey here at HSP.
Great. Well, that's probably a good segue to HSP. So you set up HSP Group back in 2010 amid a global pandemic when most businesses, if I recall, were certainly not aggressively building out new teams, let alone new entities in new countries, were they, Randy? So what on earth possessed you to take the plunge and leave a comfortable corporate life behind, as so many of the entrepreneurs that come on this show seem to do? And why then, of all times, to do that?
So you used the word comfortable there in kind of that question, Mike. I'm not the type of person that likes to be comfortable. I prefer to be uncomfortable for starters. I mean, I have found over my career when I get to a point where things are comfortable, I'm not at my best. I'm not having as much fun as I would like. Why did we start this business in the midst of a global pandemic? I think it was a couple of things. There were a handful of us that co-founded the business that had generally spent the last decade or two helping companies figure out what international expansion means, where they should be going, the back office implications of expanding to this country versus that. And many of us felt as if the servicing model and the capability set was ripe for disruption. Number one, our experience was such that customers were coming to us asking for things that seemed like they should be well within the realm of possible. But for what we felt were a bunch of bad reasons, they became impossible to do. And so fast forward, a couple of us sitting down one night over, drinks in Miami, like many of these things come to be, started putting ideas on the back of a napkin. And here we are at HSP 3 years later.
Okay, let's explore that in a bit more detail then, Randy. So in a crowded marketplace, and BPO is extremely crowded, as you know, was there a eureka moment perhaps in Miami then when you thought you'd spotted a gap, you had a hunch you were onto something unique and compelling that the market needed and would pay for? So was there a particular moment that crystallized your thoughts and which started this going for you?
Yeah, so part of it I think was just what was going on in the world in 2020, right? So global pandemic, much of it. Well, I think all of us, had never expected or experienced such a thing. Many parts of the world were shut down. Everybody had quickly wrapped their head around remote working, this kind of work from anywhere notion, and what we saw transpire was the way that businesses thought about international expansion, kind of going global, hiring talent on a global scale, had radically changed as a result of the pandemic. So, we would regularly have customers come to us. Previous, it was my business wants to expand to Romania or Bulgaria. Let's go through the exercise of setting up an entity, etc. What happened during the pandemic was it was less about my business needs to set up an entity in Romania. It was more about I found phenomenal talent. One data engineer in Romania helped me through the hiring process. And this one data engineer may be the only person I ever hire in Romania. It was a seismic shift in how companies thought about international expansion.
I got it. So the opportunity, therefore, was to enable them to set up anywhere, anytime, and onboard the absolute best talent available to them in the marketplace, wherever that individual might be located in the world. And to do that fast, yeah?
100%. 100%. And so the other part of your question there, Mike, what we also saw was the proliferation of technology as an enabler. So this had forever been, this being kind of this global expansion industry, had forever been thought of as just largely a services business. We now had the opportunity to embed technology to enable folks to go global that didn't exist previous. Again, largely or to some extent a function of the global pandemic.
Okay. And can you give us some examples of how you utilize technology to, I think you described it before, sort of almost creating a checkout process that businesses can easily navigate to be able to procure whatever they need on a workflow basis all online, maybe with very little human contact, or as much as little as they wanted in terms of advice and guidance. But can you give me an example of how technology sort of came of age for you and how you were able to leverage it to again disrupt the industry?
Yeah, certainly. So, kind of direction of travel here, very much kind of a e-commerce capability. So, the way that it used to work was, you know, so somebody would come to us or come to a provider once a decision had been made that they wanted to expand to Brazil. There's a number of human to human conversations that need to take place. Tell us about your business operations, how many employees you intend to hire, what the activities are going to be in Brazil. That then goes into kind of a lengthy solutioning process. Again, very kind of person driven. That process can take weeks, sometimes months, just to figure out what the right answer is for that potential customer going to Brazil. Never mind, once a decision has been made, the actual kind of workflow activities to set them up in Brazil. The way I see this business evolving rapidly is that entire kind of front end process can, to a very large extent, be very e-commerce driven. So rather than you and I having to have a conversation, Mike, about what it is you're trying to accomplish in Brazil, and that process taking weeks, there's definitively a solution for you where you answer a couple of questions online, and based on the data set and responses you provide, things like AI being able to guide the thought process and very much workflow automation, an immediate answer for you that says, boom, Mike, here's what you need in Brazil. It's going to cost X and it's going to take Y to set up. And that compresses the overall cycle time of that Brazil expansion from what was weeks or months, literally into minutes, maybe days maximum. Right. And so you think about that as an employer or potential employer trying to hire talent. Time is very much of the essence. Like, you may be competing for, again, a data engineer in Brazil. That's your top candidate. Well, that top candidate may also be talking to 3 other potential employers. The sooner you have the solve for Brazil, the sooner you're able to hire that individual in Brazil, gives you a leg up on securing that candidate and making sure he or she does not take a job offer from anyone else.
Yeah, so really what you're offering here is not just speed, it's actually competitive advantage to land talent wherever you need them, whenever you need them, and do that real quick here, so that you're running a slick operation here, which is very, very customer friendly.
Yeah, and again, so it's spent a fair amount of time here today talking about talent acquisition, but there may be other motivations for going to Brazil, that are talent independent. So it may be you're looking to win a piece of business from a potential customer in Brazil. Right. Well, to deliver on that business, you are going to need some presence in Brazil. So there's a talent acquisition component. There's a revenue generating component. Sometimes it's things like you're looking at buying a business that's in 10 countries, not just one, right? And the sooner you can establish that back office infrastructure in those 10 countries you haven't operated in previous, the quicker you can get to close, the quicker you can start to realize the synergies and economic model that's been put forth with that acquisition.
Got it. No, thanks, Randy. That's clear. So let's explore this. I guess you've helped a lot of customers set up in new operations in some pretty challenging, sometimes hostile locations, haven't you? Where their people are going to be the first on the ground, doing at times vital work. You must have a few stories you can share with our listeners about when that's happened, and maybe when it hasn't always been smooth sailing.
But where to start? We have the kind of distinct honor here at HSP of doing this kind of all day, every day for our customers. I think you said it at the onset. Last year we helped customers enter 70 plus different countries around the world, kind of all shapes and sizes. I feel incredibly fortunate that I get to work with a lot of really neat, disruptive entrepreneurs, kind of every single day, doing all sorts of different things. About 2/3 of our customers here at HSP are venture capital, kind of technology, high growth organizations. So that gives us a bit of a front row seat into some really cool industries like, kind of green technology or the whole EV space, electric vehicles. We get to work with a lot of, kind of the other end of the spectrum, pharma or biopharma type businesses. And so a couple of stories that stick out in my mind. We had a client that is tasked with developing and bringing AIDS medicines to third world or developing countries. And so as they try to deliver those medicines around the world, they use HSP to help them enter those markets. And so sometimes that involves hiring talent locally in some of these developing countries. Sometimes it involves us setting up entities, doing their bookkeeping for them. So while we are kind of the back office administrator for what it is they do, I do feel that HSP plays a role in bringing some of these medicines to parts of the world that may not otherwise have them. We have another client, kind of the other end of the spectrum, that does infrastructure projects for governments, often in developing countries. And so their business is they will win a piece of work, maybe to build, roads or bring water to parts of the country that may not otherwise have access to water. And part of our our level of effort, we will help them enter all of those countries. And some of these countries, Mike, I think most people couldn't even tell you which continent they're on, let alone pick it out on a map. So some of this, for us, is equally interesting. Like, yes, we love helping customers go to the UK or Netherlands or Ireland, but some of it for us is also an opportunity to learn about places like Eswatini or Zambia or Bolivia. Places that I never expected when we started this would show up on our radar. But equally, I say regularly, if it were easy, everybody would do it.
Got it. I love the story, Randy, around helping the AIDS Foundation. Vital work. So it must be great to feel and see that your services are going to really good use in that case, setting up entities that are potentially going to save and extend lives. Playing this forward, some of our listeners may well be asked now or in the future to set up operations in completely new environments, anywhere in the world, and potentially on the very other side of the world. What advice and guidance, would you give them? What considerations should they be thinking about? Whether or not they work with a partner like HSP. What do they need to take into account to nail that, to do it right?
Yeah, so first thing I'd say, do your research. Consult with experts. That doesn't mean it needs to be a 6 month or 12 month long exercise, but get to know partners locally, kind of on the ground, that can help you navigate the challenges of doing business in pick a country type thing. So I sit here in the U.S., and many of us here in the States tend to think that the rest of the world operates very much like it does here, within the 50 states of the U.S., and that's not true. It is wildly different, right? And so, things like in the U.S. we have this concept of employment at will, right? Which basically means either party in an employee-employee relationship can terminate basically on a moment's notice. That concept doesn't exist in most other places outside of the U.S. Things like supplemental health care and insurance, and what types of benefits you offer candidates in different markets varies wildly. In many parts of the world outside of the US, it is very much statutory driven. So you have to offer X, Y, and Z to candidates you hire in this country or that. And the benefit, Mike, that we always try to counsel our clients on is spending a little bit of time at the onset, doing that research, kind of building the roadmap, the project plan, understanding what you're getting yourself into, is inevitably going to save you time, energy, and money down the road from getting it wrong. So the other side, of the conversations that we have with our clients, often we get pulled into the situation where somebody did something wrong, right? And somebody's got a mess or a 5 alarm fire on their hands, and they need somebody like us to help clean it up and kind of mitigate it. While we're certainly happy to help in those scenarios, I think the better kind of diligence at the front end would help mitigate some of those disasters down the road.
And just, in terms of disasters, the kind of gotchas that can really throw a spanner in the works, do they fall into some sort of main buckets? Are there a couple of things you see time and time again where you go, this could have been avoided, but,
Yeah. So employment is a big one. I mentioned, not by accident, the kind of notion of employment at will here in the States and how that doesn't exist. I wouldn't say regularly, but not infrequent. We will have a client that terminates an individual and then figures out or realizes after the fact there were statutory severance payments or redundancy payments or garden leave that hadn't been contemplated. And so we need to, kind of backpedal with them a bit. Other things like collective bargaining agreements, not necessarily a common theme throughout the U.S., but very much, throughout Europe and certainly Latin America. Once upon a time, Brazil, for example, had something like 6,000 different employee unions, just trying to make, heads or tails of which union your employees need to be categorized in, and then the rules. Never mind the scenario where it's likely your employees in Brazil may fall into multiple unions or different unions depending on the job spec. So employment is a big one for us. Yeah, I would say the other one, and again, kind of tangential to employment, kind of all things HR related. So, Japan, for example, it tends to be um, not just employee friendly, but there's a lot of HR infrastructure that needs to be put in place in Japan as you build out your team. So, for example, like there's time tracking requirements. Once you get above a certain threshold of headcount in Japan, it is mandatory that you track individuals' time. Um, there are things like work rules in Japan that have to be drafted by the employer and then approved by employees. So for somebody going into a place like Japan for the first time, they, probably fair enough, have no idea about all these implications, on the HR side. But that's what we're here to help navigate.
And I guess ignorance isn't bliss in this case, is it? When it comes to the government's tax and rules and unions. So get it wrong is it expensive, and therefore work with an expert and do your homework. Yeah, I think it's probably the counsel there. Okay, Randy, looking forward, what are you most excited about? Now, next 6 to 12 months. What's next?
So I'm incredibly excited about kind of all things data, AI, and what I think that'll mean to our business and the industry at large. One of the analogies that I use often, Mike, kind of the arrival versus the departure lounge. If you think about kind of the airport terminal, so I think this industry, over the decades has been very accustomed to being at the arrival lounge. And what I mean by that is, the customer that decides they want to expand to Argentina, some international expansion provider sitting there and answering the phone from that customer saying, we've made the decision, we want to expand to Argentina, now help us get there. I think an organization like HSP certainly has an opportunity to kind of turn that equation upside down. And rather than just waiting for the phone to ring, I want to go to Argentina. Based on all the data and insights we have from all our customers that have gone to Argentina versus Peru versus Colombia, I can now take that data and go talk to other potential customers that haven't necessarily contemplated going to Colombia and have some intelligent dialogue with them about their market opportunity in a place like Colombia and why they needed to enter the Colombian market yesterday, right? And maybe it's a function of types of customers that they're interested in. Maybe it's a function of types of talent that they want to source. Maybe it's a function of all of their competitors are there, so they need to be there as well. But in lieu of the way that this has worked historically, the customer calling us saying, "Yeah, I want to go to Colombia," and us just kind of being at the arrival lounge once they reach. I think, yeah, again, kind of based on the data set we've got at our fingertips, having a front row seat to where different types of businesses are expanding, we've got a very unique opportunity to use that data and inform or help clients get to the conclusion of where they should think about expanding their business next. And that's going to look wildly different for all of us.
And that providing those insights is radically different to the traditional, I think, view of the industry as a sort of reactive, not proactive partner to their clients when it comes to setting up an operation. It really turns the whole dynamic on its head, doesn't it, Randy? And I think you're becoming a true business partner there, helping inform the strategy on which plays next and where to place your bets. So that's good to know. What's your favorite productivity hack for entrepreneurs?
What's my favorite productivity hack? This is less of a hack. This is more just kind of a you know 3 years in arrears of working for a startup. Maybe more in the context of um, uh, what I've learned that I didn't expect when I got into this, Mike. I expected this was going to be hard. I expected it was going to be long hours. Never afraid of hard work. I had no idea it was going to be as hard as it has been. I say to our CEO regularly, I kind of walk away every single night completely exhausted. But by the same token, I can't wait to show up again tomorrow and do it all over again. Um, I didn't I didn't expect it would be as much fun when we launched HSP Group, but again, kind of 3 years in arrears. I couldn't imagine doing anything different.
Okay. One tool you carry in your toolbox, Randy, that no matter what project you're working on, no matter what customer you're working on, no matter what country you're entering or re-entering, one tool you always use in your toolbox.
Uh, Honestly, it's my mobile phone. I cannot do anything without my mobile phone. My wife hates it. My kids hate it. But by the same token, it allows me to kind of keep in touch. With the kids, the family. I spend a lot of my time, traveling around the world. And if it's WhatsApp, if it's text, FaceTime, whatever the case is, it allows me to stay connected to what's going on at home when I'm away, but equally on the other side, on the more kind of professional side, keep in touch with customers around the world, stay on top of things. Again, totally different than kind of how business operated 20 years ago.
I got it. And do you have just one phone, or do you manage to have one for private, one for
I
public?
am
Public,
a
Randy.
I am a one device guy. I once upon a time toyed with two devices, and it just became too cumbersome. I am very much a minimalist, Mike, and so one phone just feels better than two. If you were to peek inside any office I've ever had over the years, you would not find pictures and a bunch of personal stuff in the office or hanging on the walls or on the desk. Like, my rule has always been, if it doesn't fit in the laptop bag, if it doesn't fit in the overhead bin on the airplane, I don't need it. So
I love that. A simple life. Keep it
that's
clean.
right.
If you were going to live on a desert island and you could only take one thing with you, what would it be? And it can't be your mobile.
What would I take with me? Uh, so you, I'm sure, did not expect this answer. I would actually take a fishing pole. Not for the reason you may assume. I very much enjoy fishing, uh, and equally, I am not at all good at it. If I had nothing to do for the rest of my life, if I was stranded on a desert island, I feel like that would present a really good opportunity for me to get incredibly skilled at fishing, and it so kind of the counter to always having my mobile with me. Fishing is one of those things that it is the one time where I set the phone aside and don't look at it. So that's what I would take with me: a fishing pole.
I got it. I love that. And that's why it's called fishing, isn't it? Not catching. Yeah. Okay, you can have your wish. Couple more questions before we wrap up, Randy. Looking back, I'm sure you do from time to time. What do you wish you knew when you started out? What's the one thing you wish you knew?
The one thing I wish I knew, there's going to be setbacks, right? There's going to be obstacles. I think a lot of entrepreneurs go into it, very much, glass half full, conquer the world type mentality. Somebody once said to me, in a startup kind of entrepreneurial environment, 3 good days and 2 bad in a given week is a win. And it took a while at the onset for that to really kind of sink in and resonate with me. But, I try to always make sure the rest of the team here at HSP kind of equally understands that. Like, things are going to be hard, but there's much more good, and much more successes and wins going on here than some of the obstacles or challenges that folks may get consumed with day to day.
Good. So I think it's maintain that sense of perspective is what I'm hearing, Randy. There, is that right?
Yeah.
And
Very
counting your
much so.
blessings, knowing when you're winning more than you're losing, even if it's 3/2. I got it.
Yeah.
No, great, good. What should I have asked you today, but haven't?
What should you have asked me today? What's next after HSP? I actually, had you asked me that, Mike, I wouldn't have known. I wouldn't have had an answer prepared for you. I think for the foreseeable future, all of us here are very much kind of heads down focused on continuing to build a fantastic company that delights clients and staff love to show up at every single day. I honestly don't know what I would do to fill my time kind of post HSP in a post HSP world. And maybe that sounds odd. My wife tells me she's going to buy me a lawnmower to just keep me out of the house and consume my time in the event that day were ever to arrive. But had you asked me that question, I would have stumbled to come up with a meaningful answer for you.
I hear you. Okay. Randy, where can people go find out more about you and your work at HSP? Where do they look?
Yeah, so HSP.com. We've got a great website out there. We publish a ton of thought leadership blogs, podcasts, different topics, compliance regulations, a lot of really good customer stories about expanding to this country or that, or wish I would have known this or factored in that. But HSP.com would be a great place for folks to go and spend some time.
Fantastic, Randy. And are you back over in the UK soon? I know you come over to the UK and Europe quite regularly now, don't you? Visit customers.
Yeah, so I've been there. I've been there twice since June. Most recently about 3 weeks ago. I expect I will be back sometime before the end of the year, end of the calendar year. I love spending time in London, getting to meet with clients, potential clients, partners. Our team there, we've got a fairly large operation spread across the UK. London's a fantastic city. It's one of my favorite cities anywhere in the world, and it's just incredibly easy to get around, incredibly efficient.
Randy, brilliant. And just for our listeners' benefit, it's hsp.com. Randy will be over in the UK and Europe before Christmas. But they've got a great website. I checked it out recently. I know it's just been redone. There's loads and loads of information, advice and guidance there. And I hope on the back of today, it's really opened our listeners' eyes to just how the outsourcing, the setting up, how easy it is to set up a business now, how easy it is with the right partner to land talent quickly, but also the pitfalls that should still be taken into consideration and be avoided to do it right. So, Randy, absolutely loved having you on the show. You've been an inspiration today. Thank you so much. And the episode will be dropping soon. Any parting words?
No, I appreciate the time. As any of your listeners, Mike, embark on global expansion, we'd love to be a resource. As you said, as I hope I've articulated throughout today, we've done this for decades, dozens and dozens and dozens of countries a year. It's hard, but that's what makes it interesting to us, and our job is to help make it, as painless and as efficient as possible. So appreciate the time spent today, Mike.
Well, Randy, you're welcome. And just for our listeners, I can personally endorse Randy and HSP's work, because we were fortunate enough to work with them recently when we set up our own US operation in Chicago and New York as well. It was absolutely seamless getting our employees up within days, to the point that my commercial manager said, "Guys, what am I supposed to be doing here?" She was totally blown away that it was everything was taken off her. So you guys are brilliant at what you do, and thanks for sharing what you have today with our listeners. It's been great. Randy, wish you a great day.
I appreciate it, Mike.